Amahle was a kind and hard-working nurse in Ibadan, Nigeria. She was also a loving mother to 3 children and had been married to Thulani, a respected university lecturer, for 15 years. She trusted him completely. That Sunday morning felt peaceful. The children were still asleep, and Thulani was taking a long shower. Amahle sat on the couch, sipping tea, when she heard a soft ping from his laptop. She thought it might be an important message from work. Without thinking too much, she walked over and opened it. What she saw wasn't an email or class schedule. It was a message from someone she didn't know, but the words were too personal, too strange. Her heart skipped. She clicked again. Then she found a folder called Class Notes 2010, 2024. She thought it was his research, but what opened next changed everything. Her hands began to shake. That simple decision to open one harmless message was like turning a key into a hidden world. It was the moment everything in her life shifted. She didn't know it yet, but her peaceful Sunday morning was the beginning of the end of her marriage and the start of a storm she never expected. Amahle stared at the screen, still unsure of what she had just seen. The folder on her husband's laptop was called Class Notes 2010, 2024. To anyone else, it would look completely normal, like it held lecture materials or university research. That's exactly what she thought too. Thulani was a lecturer, always talking about his work and how busy he was with students and papers. So she clicked the folder, expecting to see slides, documents, maybe even student names or grades. But what opened next made her heart stop. Inside the folder were dozens of subfolders. At first glance, it seemed confusing. Why would lecture notes have names like Chika 2017, BC 2021, or ADA Weekends Only? She blinked, trying to make sense of it. The folder names continued, each one labelled with a woman's name, and sometimes a date, or a title like Lagos Escape, Private Files, or No Evidence. Amahle's hands turned cold. Her chest felt tight. Her eyes quickly scanned through the names. There were more than 30 folders. Some had names she recognized, friends of the family, former students, even a neighbor. Some had labels so strange they made her stomach turn. She moved her trembling hand to the mouse and clicked on a folder labeled Sade Private Files. It opened slowly, as if her laptop itself was hesitating. Inside were photos, too many to count. Amahle gasped as she saw Thulani in some of them. He was smiling, holding another woman close. In one video, he was kissing her, whispering things in her ear. The woman laughed, touching his face in a way that only a lover would. Her ears began to ring. She clicked on another file, a voice recording. It was Thulani's voice, soft and full of laughter. "She still thinks I'm faithful," he said, chuckling. "It's almost cute." Amahle felt like the floor had disappeared. Her world, the life she thought she knew, suddenly became a lie. Her husband, the father of her children, the man she prayed with, slept beside and celebrated anniversaries with, had been hiding an entire secret life inside a folder disguised as university work. It was so cleverly done, no one would suspect it. But now, the truth was right in front of her. She kept looking. Every file she opened was worse than the last. Photos of weekend trips in Lagos, hotel bookings, messages full of promises, lies, and intimate words. He had been doing this for years, and some of the folders were as recent as 2 weeks ago. One folder was even dated on their anniversary. She remembered that day clearly. He had surprised her with flowers, made her breakfast, and told her he loved her more than ever. But behind that smile, behind those soft words, was a man who had planned to cheat again, maybe even that same night. Amahle felt like she couldn't breathe. Her mind was spinning. How had she missed all of this? How had he hidden so much and for so long? She tried to cry, but no tears came. Her body felt frozen, as if it was protecting her from the pain that hadn't fully hit yet. She clicked on another folder. This one had a woman in her 20s. In the video, Thulani was in their bedroom, their own bed, the place where they had shared so many memories. And he laughed in the video, saying, "My wife thinks I'm still loyal. Can you believe that?" That broke her. Not just the betrayal, but the mockery, the The cruelty of it. How could someone pretend to love so deeply, only to laugh about the lie behind their back? But Amahle didn't scream. She didn't destroy the laptop. She didn't call him in the bathroom. Instead, something inside her shifted. Her pain became strength. With shaking fingers, she reached for a flash drive in the drawer. She copied the entire folder, all of it, every name, every video, every piece of proof. Then she closed the folder, shut the laptop quietly, and sat back down. She stared at the wall, her heart beating fast, but her face completely calm. She had just witnessed the death of her marriage, but she knew she couldn't break, not yet. She needed to be smart. She needed to protect her children, her sanity, her future. What Thulani didn't know was that by keeping his dirty secrets hidden so carefully, he had also handed her the key to her freedom. The files he thought would stay private forever had just given Amahle everything she needed to take back her life. And as the bathroom door opened and Thulani came out with a towel around his waist, smiling at her like nothing had happened, Amahle smiled back, just slightly. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to, because in that moment, she already knew the war had started, and she was going to win it, with truth as her weapon and his own lies as her shield. Mahal sat still in front of the laptop, her eyes wide, her heart pounding so loudly she could hear it in her ears. She had already opened several folders filled with photos, videos, and voice notes of her husband Thulani with other women, but one file stood out. It was simply named with a date. She clicked on it without thinking. The video began to play. It didn't take long for her to realize the setting. It was their bedroom, their own bed, the one where they had spent years together, talked late into the night, raised their children, and shared private jokes. It was the same place where just weeks ago, Thulani had kissed her on the forehead, held her hand, and told her, "Happy anniversary, my love." That memory now felt fake, rotten, hollow. But the worst part wasn't just the betrayal. It was what Thulani said in the video that shattered her completely. He was with a much younger woman, laughing, looking completely relaxed. The girl playfully asked, "Does your wife suspect anything?" And he chuckled, shook his head and said, "She still thinks I'm faithful after all these years. It's almost cute." Then they both laughed. That laugh hit Amahle like a slap. Her throat tightened, her eyes burned. The trust she had built over 15 years, gone in one sentence. This wasn't just cheating. It was mockery. It was cruelty. It was the deepest kind of disrespect. She didn't scream. She didn't break down. Not because it didn't hurt, but because the pain was too deep for noise. Her body felt numb, like her soul had stepped out and was watching her from above. For a few minutes, she just sat there, staring at the screen, listening to them laugh again and again. Every giggle from Thulani felt like another stab to her chest. Then, slowly, Amahle moved. Her hand reached for the flash drive still plugged into the laptop. She copied the file, not just that one, but all of them. Every photo, every video, every voice note. She made sure she had everything. She didn't want to come back to this again. She didn't want to see more later and feel this pain over and over. She would take it all now, once and for all. As the files copied, she wiped her tears away. Not many, just a few that had silently rolled down her cheeks. She didn't sob. She didn't fall to the floor. That was not her way. Not today. When the last file finished copying, she gently closed the laptop. The sound of it shutting was soft, but in her mind, it felt like the sound of a coffin closing. Everything she believed in, her marriage, her love story, her faith in him, had just been buried. She looked around the room, their room. Her eyes landed on a photo frame by the bedside. It was a picture of the two of them from years ago, laughing at a beach in Ghana. She remembered how happy she felt that day, how proud she was of the man beside her. Now, she felt like she didn't even know him. Amahle stood up slowly. Her legs felt weak, but she stayed calm. She took the flash drive, placed it inside a drawer with her other personal things, and locked it. Then she walked to the bathroom and washed her face with cold water. When she looked in the mirror, she saw someone new, someone stronger, quieter, and more dangerous. She wasn't just a betrayed wife anymore. She was a woman who knew the full truth, and she would not be silent about it. Thulani walked out of the bedroom minutes later, dressed, smiling, asking what they should eat for lunch. Amahle looked at him and forced a small smile. "I'm not very hungry," she said softly. Her voice was calm, but inside she was already planning her next move. She didn't tell him what she knew. She didn't need to. The silence was more powerful. She had seen the truth, saved it, and buried the pain deep inside her heart. For now, because this was not the end. This was just the beginning. She knew exactly what she needed to do next. But first, she would sleep, she would pray, and she would protect her children. What Thulani didn't know was that the game was over, and the woman he thought was cute for trusting him blindly had just become the one person he should fear the most. Her silence was not weakness, it was preparation. As Amahle lay in bed that night, next to a man she no longer loved or trusted, she held her strength like a sword. The files were saved. The truth was hers, and soon the whole world would know who Thulani truly was. Amahle didn't say anything to Thulani that day. She didn't shout or cry or throw things. She just moved through the house like everything was normal. She cooked dinner. She helped the kids with their homework. She nodded as Thulani told her about his day. But inside, she was no longer the same woman. Something inside her had changed completely. Her heart was no longer open to him. Her eyes saw everything clearly now. The man sitting across from her, the man she had loved for 15 years, had become a stranger, and she knew she needed to act fast and smart, not with anger, but with power. The next morning, before the children woke up, Amahle quietly stepped out of the house. She didn't go to work that day. Instead, she got into a cab and travelled straight to Lagos. She had done her research the night before. She found the name of one of the best divorce lawyers in the city, a woman known for helping women in powerful but painful situations like hers. When Amahle walked into the lawyer's office and placed the flash drive on the desk, she didn't even have to say much. The lawyer plugged it in, clicked on one folder, and looked up slowly. "We'll handle this," she said. "Every last part of it." Amahle nodded, her face calm, but her hands still slightly shaking. The lawyer gave her a plan. Step by step, they would gather evidence, file for divorce, and freeze every asset Thulani had access to before he could move a single naira. Amahle followed every instruction carefully. She sent herself copies of all the videos, messages, and photos. Then she logged into their shared accounts, bank, investments, savings, even the children's school fund, and downloaded every detail. She printed what she could, backed up the rest, and hid it in 3 different flash drives. She didn't sleep much for the next 2 days. At night, she lay beside Thulani, pretending nothing had changed. He smiled in his sleep. He had no idea his world was about to fall apart. Amahle kept her silence, but she didn't waste a single second. She called her best friend, someone she could trust, and asked for help to quietly move her personal documents and some cash. She also spoke to her workplace supervisor and explained she might need some time off soon, but didn't share the details yet. Everything had to be perfect. Exactly 72 hours after she discovered the truth, the divorce papers were ready, signed, stamped, and official. A court in Lagos granted an emergency injunction, freezing all of Thulani's bank accounts, property transactions, and financial access. He wouldn't be able to move money, sell land, or hide anything. Amahle had moved faster than he ever expected. She was always quiet, always gentle, and he had no idea she could be so strong, so strategic. But pain has a way of creating power. Back at home, Amahle acted like it was a normal day. She packed lunch for the kids, helped them get dressed for school, and kissed them goodbye. Then she stood by the window and waited. Around 10 a.m., she received a call from her lawyer. Everything had been submitted. She whispered a prayer under her breath and whispered, "Thank you." Later that afternoon, Thulani received a call from his bank. His cards weren't working. His accounts were frozen. He tried logging in and failed. Then he saw the message from Amahle's lawyer, an official divorce notice, and a list of charges with screenshots attached. He was speechless. He rushed home, red with confusion and panic, and found Amahle sitting in the living room, reading a book like nothing had happened. She looked up and smiled softly. He asked, "What's going on?" She stood up, walked past him and said, "You should call your lawyer." That was it. No shouting, no drama, just truth, clear and sharp. In the days that followed, news began to spread quietly. People around them started to notice something was wrong. Thulani was no longer his usual proud self. He avoided calls, skipped meetings, and couldn't access money. At work, whispers started. Amahle said nothing to anyone, but those who knew her noticed the change. Not in her words, but in her eyes. She walked taller now, stronger, not bitter, but brave. She didn't want revenge. She wanted freedom, and she was getting it, one step at a time. Thulani never saw it coming. He thought she would beg, cry, or look the other way like so many others did. But Amahle wasn't like the others. She had seen enough, felt enough, and now she was done. Quietly, she had exited the lie. And now the storm was beginning, not just for him, but for every mask he ever wore. And Amahle? She was no longer a woman holding a broken heart. She was a woman building a new life, and nothing could stop her now. 1 week after Amahle filed for divorce and froze Thulani's assets, the university held its biggest event of the year, the annual gala. It was a night filled with music, lights, speeches and cameras. Important people from the city, professors, deans, students, and media houses were all present. The main highlight of the night was a special award, the Lifetime Integrity Award, and it was going to Thulani. He had been praised for his work, his loyalty to the university, and his strong moral values. Everyone clapped when his name was called. Everyone believed he was a good man. Thulani walked up to the stage in his suit, proud and smiling wide. He adjusted the microphone and began his speech, thanking his colleagues, the school, and even Amahle, the wife he had betrayed so deeply. He spoke about honesty, respect, and being a role model. People clapped. Some even stood. But then, something strange happened. The screen behind him, which had been showing soft photos from his career, suddenly went black. A few seconds of silence. Then, a video began to play. At first, people thought it was a tribute video, maybe a message from students. But the moment it started, the hall fell silent. It was a clip of Thulani in a hotel room, clearly not alone. His face was clear, his voice even clearer. "She still thinks I'm faithful," he laughed to a young woman beside him. "It's almost cute." Gasps filled the air. The laughter stopped. Eyes widened. Whispers spread like wildfire. People turned to look at each other in shock. But the video didn't stop. Another one followed, and another. Each one showed Thulani with different women, in different places, at different times. Some videos had dates, proving how recent they were. One was even from just 2 weeks ago. The screen played clips, photos, audio recordings. The truth was now out for everyone to see, raw, loud, and undeniable. The man who had just given a speech about integrity had been exposed by his own hidden files. Amahle was not in the room, but her presence was felt. She didn't need to shout or destroy anything. Her silence, her planning, her quiet strength had done more damage than any angry outburst ever could. The audience sat frozen, unsure whether to look away or keep watching. Some looked down in embarrassment. Others took out their phones, recording everything. The hall that once cheered Thulani now sat in stunned silence. The university's head of administration stood up slowly and walked toward the stage. He didn't say much. He simply took the microphone, looked at the crowd, then at Thulani, and said, "The award is hereby revoked." The applause was gone. There were no cheers, just silence. Thulani stood there, confused, ashamed, exposed. He tried to speak, but nothing came out. No words could fix what had just happened. Security was called in to manage the crowd, as whispers turned into murmurs and murmurs into outrage. Some walked out immediately. Others stayed, hoping to see more, but the damage was already done. Thulani left the stage with his head down, trying to avoid the cameras that now followed him for a different reason. Not for praise, but for scandal. His phone started ringing non-stop. Social media was exploding. People were already uploading clips. The #integrity award trended, but for all the wrong reasons. Back at home, Amahle sat quietly, her phone in her hand, watching the news unfold. A friend had sent her a video from the gala. She watched it once, then turned the screen off. She didn't smile. She didn't laugh. She simply breathed deeply, as if letting go of something heavy. The truth was finally out, and the world now saw what she had carried alone for so long. This wasn't about revenge. It was about justice, dignity, healing. Thulani, once a respected man, now had nowhere to hide. His colleagues no longer returned his calls. Students whispered behind his back. News outlets reached out for comments he could not give. Even friends who once admired his charm and intelligence stayed silent or turned away. The mask he wore for years had fallen, and everyone saw who he really was. Amahle's quiet exit had caused a storm, not with fire, but with facts. And in the center of it, she remained untouched, unbroken, and deeply respected. People began to talk about her, not with pity, but with admiration. She didn't scream, someone said. She let the truth speak for her, and it did, loud and clear. Amahle never expected her quiet pain to become a loud movement. After the shocking university gala, people everywhere began talking about her. Her story, the betrayed wife who didn't scream, didn't fight, but let the truth speak, went viral. Social media platforms across Africa were flooded with her name. People praised her calm strength, her courage, her intelligence. Women sent her messages from Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa, Ghana, thanking her for showing them they were not alone. Men were shocked too, some with guilt, others with fear, but most with respect. Amahle didn't hide. She stood tall. Instead of letting the pain destroy her, she used it to build something powerful. She launched a foundation called the Folder Project. Its mission was simple: help women recognize signs of digital cheating, protect their data, gather proof, and walk away with their dignity intact. The project grew fast. In just weeks, it helped dozens of women quietly escape toxic relationships. Amahle trained them, supported them, stood by them, not as a victim, but as a guide. Thulani, broken and humiliated, tried to reach out through mutual friends. He begged for one last chance, but Amahle's reply was cold, clear, and unforgettable. A man who saves betrayal in folders deserves a life full of deleted chances.